To make a land acknowledgement, I'd like to start this meeting by recognizing the area that we call the Fraser Valley Regional District has been home to the Nlaka'pamux, Shatatliam, Stalo, and Stalas people for generations. There are 31 communities with reserve lands in the jurisdiction and as many as 69 groups with interests in the area. This diverse landscape means that there are many different viewpoints that need to be considered when we make decisions because what we decide as a local government can affect everyone in different ways now and in the future. So, as part of our collective responsibility, I commit that we continually examine the work we do to ensure that our projects, plans, initiatives, and discussion are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and reconciliation today and in the future. So, with that in mind, I'd like to call to order the July 11th, 2024 meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee. I'll look to our CAO.
Thank you. So the first item is your report from this morning's Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting.
Hey, the open meeting. Director Pranger thanks staff for building a beautiful building in our community to contain the air monitoring equipment. Director Horn questioned staff regarding the communication protocol on the provincial plastics program. And following that, Director Horn also expressed his concern that the program could place a large responsibility and cost on the region and local governments. We then went into a closed session, and coming out of the closed session, we discussed the Community Works Fund agreement, and a first motion was separated out from the second part of the motion, which approved the Regional District Board to authorize signatories to enter into the 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund Agreement. And the second part of the staff recommendation was moved to defer, and that was approved. And that is my report from this morning's meeting.
Thank you. So next we can move to approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
For a motion, Director Johnson, second Director Adamo. All those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Next is 5.1. We have a delegation by Stephen Beach on the temporary use permit at 12465 Sylvester Road.
Mr. Beach, welcome.
Thank you. I just appreciate you letting me come and speak today. I just want to reinforce the letter that I sent for my application for the temporary permit. Just basically, I'm in a situation that I was sold that property saying that I could have this business there, this and that, and we were actually withhold a lot of the paperwork. So basically, what I'm trying to do now is just get out of this situation. I just want to get the temporary permit, cut my wood, and be out of there. And so I can just build a house on there and live and look for a new location for my business. Right now, with everything going on, it's very tough to find anything that is affordable for the size I need to cut and everything. So basically, I'm in a bit of a pickle. I just need to continue on so I can keep my business going, and then at that same time, be able to come up with the funds to relocate the business. That's basically all I really have to say. There is other businesses out there that are doing that. There is a guy who's cutting down the street who has a sawmill business who does custom cutting, which I will not be doing. And there's another guy who's got a telephone pole kind of business doing it across the street. So I'm not really being in my neighborhood out of the ordinary that's already going on around me. So I don't think I'd be disturbing anybody that much compared to what the other people are doing. So basically, I just wanted to, you can see what I'm doing on my website. I'm not producing the full product on the property. All we're doing is just cutting the pieces of wood, which came from Parks Vancouver, Stanley Park. We cut those into blocks, and then it goes off to wood shops to be machined and all the rest of the work that needs to be done to it. And then it goes into some stores, which I have a couple stores in downtown Vancouver at this time. They have a couple of my products in. So that's, I believe, I'm sorry, I've never done this before, but I believe that's all I really have to say. I just want to reinforce the letter that I'm in a situation that I've never meant to kind of pull a fast one on these people. I just want to remedy the situation and be able to move on. That's why I'm here today.
Good. You're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any questions, you can.
Yeah. Are there any questions from directors regarding this proposal. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Beach, for coming. I'm just curious, like, I take it you're operating a mill on your property. Um, how many hours a day would you say that in a typical day are you running that mill just to do
Um,
what you got to do?
Not every day. And the only reason we have a buildup of wood is because we ran into that roadblock. Normally, we wouldn't even have all that wood on there because I didn't get the wood regularly. So when it would come, it would get cut. But now, due to the legal situation with Stanley Park and Parks Vancouver and the city of Vancouver, I have now not receiving any more wood from them. So I actually have there's a problem with Parks Vancouver and the city that I got stuck in the middle of. So I actually would not be using that saw every day all the time. And I actually work in Cranbrook, BC a lot of the time. I have some small development that I've been pushing forward. So it would not be set 5 days a week, for 3 years. It wouldn't be like that. So
So
basically, I would say maybe for at the most a couple weeks in a month, I might be able to get to it.
I'm just trying to understand, like, are you still bringing during the lifespan of the temporary use permit, would you still be bringing more wood onto the property, or are you just going to
Uh,
mill what you have?
I'm basically right now we have no other supplies besides if I get a couple pieces from maybe a log deck because I've got into making these structural columns. But no, I'm not going to be getting any deliveries from Parks Vancouver. There's not logging trucks coming. I have no other sources because we just right now the way it is, I can't store any more wood for one thing, and secondly, I just need to market what I have. That's what I'm trying to do. I have a lot of wood. I have enough wood to last there for because it takes a long time to dry it. So I
Right,
have wood that will last me definitely a few years of just after it's cut, just for machining and doing woodworking.
right. Thank you.
If that's a little vague, but not regularly. It's not going to be a 5 day a week thing.
Good.
And
Thank
I
you.
have no employees. It's not like I'm running a business. I am running a business, but I'm not running a custom cutting business for other companies or for people. It's strictly just a part of the process in making my product.
Okay. Thank you, Director Davidson. Mr. Beach, are there any other comments? Hearing none, we'll thank you again.
I just encourage you to just go to my website to take a look so you guys understand what's coming out. It's not a typical product for Canada anyways.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you again. Ms. Kinnaman.
6.1 is the draft Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of June 13th, 2024.
Okay, motion. Move Director Dixon, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary motion carries.
7.1 is Financial Plan 2024 to 2028 amendment.
Motion, Director Johnson, second Director Hassel. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary motion carries.
8.1 is Temporary Use Permit 2023-02 to allow wood processing and outdoor storage at 12465 Sylvester Road in Electoral Area F.
Motion, Director Davidson moves, second Director Dixon. Director Davidson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just the motion there had me a little bit confused when thinking, how can you issue a temporary use permit when you haven't had the public concerns, haven't had the feedback from the public yet? I did touch base with Mr. Navi and clarified that to my satisfaction. Basically, between now and when this motion comes to the board, that's when the public feedback will come in. And like anything, public feedback is quite important to me for support. And we'll see what happens at that point. We'll go from there. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, the motion carries.
8.2 is Harrison Mills Neighborhood Plan Background Report. This is an information item.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, we will move forward.
8.3 is the Lake Eric Neighborhood Plan Background. Again, an information item.
Any discussion? Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions. Thank you for both of these reports, actually, the plan. So, it's my understanding that if both of these were developed out, that could be more than what's currently the housing and needs assessment for electoral area C. Is that accurate?
For the Chair to Director Dixon, that would be accurate. The
Okay.
Area C housing needs report, when we did it in 2021, it has an outlook for the next 20 years, so until 2041, and it really requires housing in the number of around 200 units, and it doesn't include the recent secondary suites and the accessory dwelling units that the province has allowed. So we can add that on top of that. So your understanding would be accurate.
Okay, thank you. And then ask another one. And so I believe at this point, I gotta make sure I have the names right. There is a neighborhood plan for Harrison Mills, but nothing on paper, no developer planning on building or at this point.
The Harrison Mills neighborhood plan was initiated because there was development interest at Sandpiper Golf Course and Beach Camp, which is right across from the Sasquatch Inn, and including the medical center that's Stehalis, and they have future plans for an elder's care facility. So, and Sasquatch in the past had some development plans too. So it was a combination of development interest that triggered the neighborhood plan. And at that time, what we recommended Sandpiper was that it needs to be preceded by a neighborhood plan that FVRD would undertake. So they proceeded to go with the neighborhood plan and have not made an application yet.
Okay, thank you. One more follow-up, and this one is connected to the Lake Era plan. And I think I asked this before, just there are still is there still an opportunity at some point? Because what I'm reading is the initial Lake Era neighborhood plan did not have as many units available, and certainly some of the concerns that I'm hearing are about the density. Is there still an opportunity for that to be reduced?
So we're in the middle of the public engagement process. So giving it first reading, it does not mean that there's no further opportunity for public consultation, first Indigenous community consultation, as well as various provincial agencies. And part of this feedback from the residents is that the developer needs to respond to the resident concerns about density and go back to the community and put their proposal forward. And there's, of course, there are other concerns in addition to density around the lake and the parking in the community park and things like that. So that would be all that the developer would need to work with the community and FVRD. So the next step would be here to go through a public information meeting in front of the residents, and it will give the residents an opportunity to see the first draft of the OCP, which they have not seen. So they have not seen the plan policies that would address some of these concerns that we have heard. And through these plan policies, the developer would respond to as the direction as to how their development should be proceeded with. And so that will come into a public information meeting and also in subsequent Indigenous consultation and other aspects. Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd like to thank staff on these very detailed reports, but I think I'll leave my other comments for the next agenda item.
Thank you, Wardenberg. Any further discussion? We'll turn things back to our CEO.
Okay, so 8.4 is Area C Official Community Plan Bylaw number 1747, first reading. There is a motion for your consideration.
Ooh, Director Wardenberg, second Director Makahonic. Any discussion? Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, again, I think through the chair, I'd like to thank staff for a very detailed report, very comprehensive report. it's hard to add anything to it. I think I was a part of most of these meetings as far as the public consultation, and I think it reflects that those meetings very accurately. I think this report and the OCP, but definitely the report or the premise to the OCP here on the staff report that yeah, no, it reflects everything. It reflects the community. It reflects the process. I think it reflects it very well. It also reflects previous decisions of the board and how we got to this point. Yeah, I do have a couple questions. First of all, on the motion itself, but just clarification as far as the referrals. So I would anticipate, I just want confirmation that the referrals will go back to everyone that has been referred to in the past. And if there's any idea of any additional referrals, and also the stakeholders, if they're all going to be consulted again, is that part of the process?
Should the board give this first readings, our next step in accordance with the Local Government Act would be to go back to everyone who's been consulted, including the Indigenous communities and the residents. It'll be Minister of Environment, Minister of Forest, Minister of Transportation, the school district, First Nations, Fraser Health. And there's some couple of local community organizations that we would go back to, like LECA, and South Lake Arc Association, whom we have already talked to a couple of times. So it really allows us to start the formal referral process under the Local Government Act. And it's going to be an ongoing consultation. We have done some early engagement to come to this point, and which I would suspect that there will be amendments and changes made to the draft plan policies based on the feedback we receive.
Okay, should I continue? So on the First Nations referrals through the OCP, it's been referred to. So I don't know where I know that we've referred to the Kamal, the Stehelis, and the Scouts First Nations. Or do we refer? What other First Nations would we be referring to?
Yes, absolutely. We have done a referral for the official community plan already through we to the Stoll referral process. We call it the PRO, and I don't have an exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's more than around 14 to 18 First Nations that the referral goes out. Some of the Indigenous nations have already responded. Saying whether they have interest or not, but as a part of the Local Government Act, we will do the same referral, follow the same referral process, and it's based on our First Nations referral policy that we have adopted in FVRD, and so we will do the referral process. It will take a few months to receive the comments, and once we receive comments, we'll be happy to make presentations if need be to Chief and Council and to the residents of the communities. So would be more than happy to continue engaging with all Indigenous communities.
Okay, one last thing for now. So the report sets out a path of next steps for the process. Just one question as far as the public engagement strategy. When would you anticipate that would come back to the board?
So could you repeat that?
The public engagement strategy, I think it's part of the report as far as of your next steps. So it doesn't really have a timeline as far as when it would come back. I was just wondering when you would come into the back to identify a timeline for future consultation with the public.
We're hoping September or October.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Wardenberg. Any further discussion? Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. I'll be supporting first reading of this application. I think it's important that we go through the referral process to hear from agencies and stakeholders, also to get the technical reports in, and also to hear from the public. A couple of questions. There's already been a considerable amount of feedback and input from the public. As we move forward, will the feedback and input that we've already received, will that be included in subsequent reports around public engagement?
Our plan is always to refer to the feedback we've already received, because in part they dictate and make the policies we have drafted so far. And usually at the end, we do a public, before we'd come for a public hearing, we would do a public engagement summary of all the engagement activities and the referrals from various agencies and their comments. So there will be a summary package that we present in front of the board at a future date.
Excellent. So it's important for residents to know that the feedback and input they've already provided will continue to be considered, and they will have additional opportunities. So this actually opens up more opportunity for public feedback and engagement, and I think that's important for everyone to understand. And also, at what point, if it hasn't already been done, will we be provided with an analysis of how the OCP and the neighborhood plans reflect on our regional growth strategy?
So after the first reading under the Local Government Act, there are three things that we're obliged to do, and one of them is to undertake the consistency with the regional growth strategy, to understand the impact on our financial plan and solid waste plan. So those are underway. We've already talked to our colleagues about the regional growth strategy. There's been an attachment in one of our past reports and some reference to that in our current reports. The financial plan impact is the servicing feasibility study that our consultant, Urban Systems, is undertaking, and we plan to bring that back in front of the board in fall, and to understand what would be the impact on water, sewer, solid waste, fire, and all other services that we provide in the area.
Perfect. So from my perspective, allowing first reading to proceed gives us opportunity to collect even more information and provides the public with more opportunity for engagement. So I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Through to staff, this may be a tough question, but I'll explain the relevancy in a sec, but roughly how much staff effort, whether it's hours or FTE, whatever, do you anticipate between now and the next time a motion comes before this board?
Roughly how much in between? Maybe I could say overall. So when we did the development fee bylaw update last year, we went back and estimated around how much time we spent on these major applications, and they're almost in the 200,000 by the time we get to the full application processing, staff time, meetings, writing these reports, drafting policies there. So that's why we set the major application OCP, you remember, at more than 100,000, and then rezoning cost is in addition to that, and then in addition to that, there are subdivision cost fees.
So I should just clarify my question or qualify my question a little bit as it relates to Lake Eric, Harrison Rise, and the Lake Eric neighborhood plan. How much staff effort is involved in that? Would you say between now and the next time we have a motion before committee and board?
I think it's for not only for the Lake Eric, I would say the area COCP and the neighborhood plans are full-time commitment on a couple of staff right now. How much exactly in terms of hours? I would say it's going to take between 3 to 4 months to come back to the next step. We do the public information meeting for the referrals to come and go, perhaps do a couple of some presentations in front of with the provincial agencies, Indigenous communities. So you can imagine 1.5 staff time dedicated to that process for the next 3 to 4 months.
So in the staff report, there's a mention of option 2, which is basically to carve out the Lake Eric neighborhood plan and send the OCP back. What sort of savings in terms of staff endeavor would that bring? Rough idea. I realize it's not an easy question, but I'm trying to get a sense of it, if it's works out the same either way, or if it's significant, minor, major, and anything you can share.
Maybe what I would add to that is I think there is efficiency in having the 3 applications get processed together, because for us to go do individual public hearings on separately for Area C and Harrison Mills, and then to do it for Lake Earl, would be doubling the efforts. And not only that, for the residents, it might be a little confusing to know whether they go to Area C to provide their comments about Area C and Harrison Mills and how the Area C doesn't relate to Lake Earl, and to go back to a different public hearing for Lake Earl and provide their comments. So I think there's more efficiency in keeping the projects together, and that's why we recommended the option to consolidate the projects.
Okay. Just for context, the rationale behind my questions are essentially that I'm troubled by the lack of support for this for the Harrison Rise development by Lake Eric residents. I know that we'll go and get more information. That's great. But I think when you've got so far, a lot of people are fundamentally opposed just based on density arguments. I'm not sure how that can be addressed. So I guess my concern was that if we go through a significant endeavor to gather all this additional information, at the end of the day, it just becomes something that fails to convince Lake Eric residents. Then we're looked at a win-lose situation for somebody where the developer and Skowlitz are happy and Lake Eric is not, or vice versa. I think the developer has done a great job of getting Skowlitz on side and coming up with a proposal that satisfies them. But as far as Lake Eric residents go, it looks like it's a long way out yet. And I appreciate we don't have a fully fledged picture to present to the residents. But I have my concerns. So I will reluctantly or with reservation support this at this time. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion? Certainly, this is a very large project for electoral areas with a lot of moving parts, and I would certainly sympathize with Mr. Nadby in trying to predict how much staff time this might consume in the future. These projects of this magnitude tends to take on a life of their own, I expect, and we will see how this evolves. But thank you very much, staff, for all the work you've done on this, and we move forward. So on the motion, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
8.5 is Development Variance Permit 2024-03 to vary the zoning regulations for an accessory dwelling unit at 59100 Laidlaw Road in Electoral Area B.
Director Adamo moves. Seconder, Director Wardenberg, any discussion? Director Adamo, please.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I went through the entire report. I've had some opportunities to speak with the landowner, the property owner, and are really comfortable with everything that they are planning to do and the process that they're going through to correct some things from the past. So thanks very much for all the work that went into this. And of course, I'll be supporting this.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.6 is Special Event Permit for the annual Around the Lake Trail Race in Electoral Area H.
It must be summertime. It's time for the the motions in the summer. Move, Director Dixon. Second, Director Johnson. Any discussion? The geezer category. All in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.7 is special event permit for the Cultus Lake Triathlon in electoral areas E and H.
For a motion. Move Director Dixon, second Director Adamo. Discussion?
Yeah.
Director Dixon.
Thank you. And thank you for both these reports. These do bring a lot of people to the area, and they're really well-run, classy events, and that are really pretty popular. So very happy to hear and to see some of the traffic plans that are in place. And I think that just will make all the difference. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Item 12 is reports by electoral area directors.
Director Johnson, we'd like to start off.
Thank you, Chair. Well, just to report on July 1st celebrations was held at the Raymond Pavilion in Boston Bar, and it was pretty casual and simple, just raising the flag, singing "O Canada," and then folks moved inside to the Boston Bar Hall, the community hall there, and were treated to strawberry shortcake, tea, coffee, water, juice, whatever they preferred. And then also entertainment was provided by 6 of our local musicians. And I guess if you look at the attendance, probably 10% of our population. So in a city that would be huge. But in my area, that was still kind of a small turnout of people. And really, compared to pre-COVID, it is really hard to get folks out and attending. Whereas before, historically, I think probably we would have had 90% of the communities coming together. But anyway, nonetheless, those that did attend were certainly entertained and had a nice time of visitation.
Good.
Thank you.
And was your father one of the performers? Wow. Isn't that amazing?
He was.
Director Adamo.
Thanks very much. It's been a really busy time for us up in Area B, lots of different things happening, but most importantly, a number of great meetings have taken place with our First Nations chiefs and continuing on next week. And as well, an opportunity was had last week for myself and for Mr. Oserhoff to meet with the new chair or the new staff sergeant in Hope and get through on a number of different issues that we're all dealing with and trying to bring some teams together to work on a future plan for that, along with Fraser Health and First Nations as well. So that was a really good opportunity that we've never had before. So that was great. We've got a big event coming up August 10th that I'll continue to push. It's our annual car show in the Sunshine Valley, and that draws people from all over the entire Lower Mainland, and the Beach Boys are there. So it's something well worth coming out for. So thanks very much, and I continue to work with everyone. AGM's happening again with our Ratepayers Association, so lots of different things.
Good. Thank you, Director Damo. Director Warden.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet along with some other colleagues. I'll let Dan Coulter, the Minister of State for, what is it, Transportation and Transit, I think. Anyway, in Chilliwack a couple of weeks ago, and I put in my 2 bits as far as the application of improvements to Highway 7. Most of the conversation was around Highway 1, of course, but you know, our little highway number 7, I put in my concerns and advocated for some improvements, which are well warranted. I had a chance to attend the Lacombe Development Corporation lunch open house at Rouge Hall and an AGM at the Community Futures North Fraser via Zoom, and attended our what do you call it, our farmers market, which is well attended on a regular basis, and encourage everybody on a Saturday morning to come and have a look at the Desroches Access Center. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Busy place. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We too had in Columbia Valley had a fantastic Canada Day celebration with a parade of 22 entries this year, which had, horses and tractors and a gigantic machine. And it was fun. So great day, as well as we had 9 soapboxes that the community members made, and it was just really a nice chance to get together. Happy to report that the business waste that has been sitting on the property in Columbia Valley on Iverson Road is being removed as we speak. They started that in earnest probably a week and a half ago, and not quite sure where it's going, but the trucks are going 24 a day. Yesterday anyway. Heading out somewhere and coming back, and the company indicates that they should be able to wrap that up in 60 days. So hopefully they do have other penalties that they've been given, and the pollution prevention order and things like that they're working through. So it's going in the right direction. Just really thankful for all the work and support from various ministries as well as the community on that one. Another one is we've had our first hot sunny weekend in Cultus Lake area in Area H, and it felt like typical hot sunny weekend that the entire Lower Mainland wanted to come. And again, really thankful for the work of RCMP and Ministry of Transportation in particular. They have stepped up the enforcement this year, and there's towing and in place. Then the RCMP did tow last week. They are bringing in extra officers this weekend just to try to really get that message out to people. We need to keep the roads safe. And it's unfortunate it's a beautiful place. There's just not space for everybody. And so that is a bit of a different challenge, but we're working on it and really appreciate the message of Tourism Chilliwack as well, which is protect this gift. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director McElhone.
Thank you. So Canada Day was able to attend the Chilliwack River Valley Volunteer Fire Department barbecue. So that was nice. I saw all the kids with the fire hoses on the trucks. They're pretty excited. So we're seeing the same issues again with homelessness. We have an issue right now where right before Bridlewood on the pullout, there's been about 5 RVs, truck and camper, and made a report. I've had others make reports, but this particular area, there's signage that says no parking, no camping overnight. But this is we have one road in and one road out, and this is of particular concern because this is where any emergency vehicles would stage. So it could be our fire department, it could be Chilliwack, it could be Cultus Lake. So I'm working on that right now and hoping to get some traction. I met with the RCMP yesterday. We've got a changeover in our stakeholders co-chair. And we talked about the Cultus Area H, Cultus Lake towing and how effective that was. But our problem is where do they tow big RVs and things? So it's not cars. So they're a little bit hesitant about towing when they don't know where they're going to put them. So that's an issue there. I've been meeting a lot of residents on just different issues. It seems busier than usual, just, having a lot of conversations, small little things and kind of doing that. I also attended the transportation meeting. It was kind of interesting to go as the second year and kind of see some of the progress and that on that. So I enjoyed that. I'm really disappointed and disheartened that we are getting no traction and no action for our residents that were impacted by the 2021 atmospheric river. And I haven't quit, but it's really discouraging. And these people are really struggling. So it's not gotten any better. And I just wanted to thank our CEO, Ms. Kinnaman, and staff for the support I've needed and received. Really appreciate it on a couple of issues that I've had to deal with in the last month. So that's been really helpful, and I've got some good reports after that. So thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Director McElhone. Director Cass.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. The past several weeks have been especially difficult for residents of Area G as our community has experienced a number of incidents that have seen the loss of homes and property, serious injury, and even resulted in tragedy. I would like to acknowledge the work of first responders, especially our amazing team of volunteer firefighters with the North Fraser Fire Department, in addition to the first responders from the City of Mission and the District of Kent, in particular from the fire departments and the RCMP detachments from those communities. We cannot express our gratitude and appreciation enough to those who work tirelessly and collaboratively to serve our communities in times of need. And to the residents of Area G who have experienced loss and injury over the past month, we acknowledge the challenges and toil these types of incidents have on our communities. And in these times, the North Fraser motto of neighbors helping neighbors has never been more relevant and important for us to remember as we get through these tough times together. And as we carry on into our summer break, I just ask everybody to stay safe and to watch out for their neighbors in times of need. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Illegal fill remains top of mind. I'd say the community's in a pretty heightened state of awareness and always on the lookout for it. It has been quiet lately, which is good news. It's interesting to note that one of the properties involved with the sort of most egregious dumping of fill, ALR property, is now up for sale it's for sale on the real estate websites. So you've got somebody who's basically done the damage and looking to get out of town. I just want to share that with people so they're aware that this kind of thing goes on. I want to thank staff for doing what they can, given the constraints on enforcement that are essentially rooted in provincial law. And I hope we continue to advocate with the province for changes to provincial law so that we can be more effective in this matter. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson, and have nothing to report from Bridal Falls, so we'll turn things back to our CEO.
Thank you. So section 13 is public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We no longer have any members of the public joining us here live in the boardroom, but we'll just turn things over to Lauren Olenek to check in online.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. So this will be the opportunity for the public to ask a question relevant to an item on today's agenda. As Ms. Kinnaman mentioned, there are no members of the public joining us in person, but we do have 4 members joining us online. We have also received 7 written questions submitted via email with respect to item 8.3. And Chair Dickey, if it's all right, I would like to start with those.
Certainly.
Thank you. So I will read out the first 5 that were received, and then I'll turn it over to Haseeb Nadvi, Deputy Director of Planning and Development, to provide answers, and then we will do the same for the following 2. So the first 5 questions were submitted by Wendy Thompson, and we'll just go through them. So question number 1, I noticed that there is still the suggestion that the development will use the Lake Arock water system. It's your development, so use your own water. This water system belongs to the Lake Arock community as residents have been paying for it for many years. Why do you think you can just tap into it and use it whether it's for backup or not? Our water system is valuable and should not be jeopardized. Question number 2. The visitors to the lake so far this summer have been overwhelming. The little park is crowded and parking is ridiculous. If FERD does not have the bylaw staff to monitor this situation and don't seem to have the imagination to think of ways to overcome this severe problem, why would we believe that the park would be monitored in the future? Question number 3. What type of negotiation is going to ensure that Lake Arock residents are able to be connected to the development sewer system? Seems to me FERD is eager to give away our water system without anything in return. Question 4. In the Lake Arock community plan, I see lots of concluding statements, but no action plan as to how to get there. Is this just blather, or is there going to be an actual process plan? Question 5. I see lots of community concerns and suggestions, but no responses to the concerns. When are you going to address these issues, or are you hoping they will just go away? And I will now turn it over to Haseeb.
Through the chair, I may look down. I have a copy of the questions as well. So as I go through the questions, I'll start by giving an overview of the official community plan adoption process, just in relation to how OCP statements and policies get to the actualization on developments. So an official community plan is a set of policies that guide the vision, whether very similarly, the neighborhood plan policies are to guide the vision of the neighborhood plan. So they're a bit more specific. They get into the servicing and environmental policies and some details. The way the policies get realized is through development applications, which of course in Harrison Rice there is a development application for Harrison Mills. We don't have a development application in front of us, and the next steps for the developer would be to take the plan policies, whether it's related to the environmental assessments, whether it's related to riparian areas, wildlife corridors, servicing for sanitary sewer system, groundwater, and lake monitoring they're doing, and implement those plan policies into the development plan that they're proposing. So, and present that in front of the board and the community. The plan policies are there now, and if it receives first reading this month, then that becomes the guide. And there are lots of plan policies that are not reflected in the development application right now, and they would need to be reflected before they go back to the community. And then we also have not really brought the zoning bylaw or the zoning amendment application in front of the board. When and if it comes in front of the board for consideration, at that time, we would secure the plan policies through the development process. We would get covenants in place to make sure when the development takes place, they abide by a certain set of rules and regulations that are consistent with the plan policies. When it comes to the Lake York water and the sewer questions, the developer has submitted a servicing study. It's on the Have Your Say website, and in the open house, we provided some information on it as well. The developer is not, while the developer is using the existing system, there is efficiency in using the existing system. It will need to be upgraded, so they will need to build an additional reservoir that we will use that will serve both the current Lake York community and the proposed Harrison Rice development should it proceed. And one of the things that it will do, and it has to consider, is also fire flows, which means fire protection. So the current reservoir size, of course, cannot handle the Harrison Rice development and the fire flow requirements, so it would need to be upsized. And one benefit for that would be because it will be upsized, the existing community will benefit from having a reservoir that provides additional fire protection or fire flow capacity. For the community sewer, we know the community, we have heard, and the developer has been in meetings, various public meetings, where they have heard that there are community interests in connecting to the wastewater treatment plant for Lake York community residents I'm talking about. We have informed the developer of that interest of the community. So far, what the developer has proposed is the land, the physical space, and some upsizing like headworks and electricals and the sides of the treatment buildings. They have not proposed to connect the Lake York community. What they have proposed is that the day that Lake York community can manage to connect to the community sewer system that they're proposing, all the equipments and the sizing would be ready to connect to. Should the board wish to, at time of first reading, direct staff to negotiate before we come back for second reading or further board considerations, we could take that as to negotiate to see what additional community benefits based on the residents' the resident concerns or comments. That is something that would be a regular part of the process, and should the staff be directed to seek additional benefits, we'd be certainly happy to do so. The visitors to the lake, That's it's a that's definitely another one of the significant concerns we have heard is the size of the Lake Arrow Community Park that we have and the visitor management issues at the especially over the weekends, summer weekends. Um, our draft OCP policies do speak to limiting on-site parking, but in order to do so, we'll have to work with the Ministry of Transportation, who's got the jurisdiction of roads, as well as RCMP to manage the visitor strategy. So, and in addition to that, some of the other policy crux that we have in the plan is adoption of development cost charges to acquire parkland in Lake Rock. So what that means is, as should this development proceed, they would have to pay into development cost charges fund so we can slowly buy and acquire an additional park space. And when we do development cost charges, we look into the market value of the land we'll have to buy and some of the improvements to make it into a community park. So the plan policies do talk about development cost charges and amenity cost charges that will need to be adopted to acquire more land on the lake outside. And the visitor management is something we'd have to work with the Minister of Transportation and to limit on-site parking on that road, and as well as RCMP.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Nutt. Staff, there are more comments or questions, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Director Castle, did you have a comment?
Yeah, we have an opportunity to ask questions or comment, don't we? Just for clarity, the park at Lake Arrow, who owns that park?
We do.
We do?
Sorry, it's Minister of Transportation. Sorry, I was wrong.
Ministry of Transportation. So the comments about FERD managing that park, we don't manage that park currently, correct?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the water, you gave a great detailed explanation, but I just want to confirm what I heard in the question. The application for Harrison Rise is not proposing to tap into the existing Lake Eric water system. In fact, it's proposing to increase the capacity of the existing by building a larger reservoir. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are, and as well as they'll have to dig new wells to provide water to their proposed development.
Right. So the development is not proposing to tap into the existing water system, and I heard the comment that if the board directed staff to explore other benefits with regards to waste management, that we could do that. Is that something that we need a motion to do, or do we just indicate that we wish for that to happen?
I don't think we would need a motion. The board can indicate in their comments.
Okay, because I think that's something that we would want to at least explore, Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, if I can, the chair allow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be the question. At what point would that direction be warranted? Today's meeting or second reading? I'm just thinking we should be looking for a little bit more information as far as the site services and costs, and or what's your opinion?
The board can, when it goes to the board meeting in 2 weeks' time, we can, at time of first reading consideration, when we make a resolution, there could be comments that we could take, and we can bring that additional information from the developer to see at time of second reading or even prior to second reading, when we bring back the servicing feasibility study in front of the board, we can bring that information and what the developer is proposing, as well as the developer can be here to answer some questions. So we can do that. But I would say comments, I will take these comments right now as an indication, and as well as in 2 weeks' time during the board meeting when we consider it for first reading, if there are comments associated with this, we'll take those as direction as well.
Good. Director Warden.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very prudent. I think it's a very important issue is the health of the lake. this point in time. And it hasn't been said, but there is, and it's in the report, history of failing sewer systems. And it is a huge benefit to the existing Lake Era residences to be hooked up to a sewer system. Just want to say that.
Good.
Chair Dickey, if I could just provide some further clarification regarding the issue about the park. Ownership is the Ministry of Transportation. The FBRD does have land tenure over that park, and we do, in fact, manage the site, but we don't have ownership of the park. Just wanted to make sure there was clarity for the committee.
Good. Thank you, staff, for providing that. Director Warden.
Sorry, one other thing just in regard to the park, since it came up. The other highway accesses to Lake Airrock, there's a couple other, who owns those?
There's some, are you talking to some of the Minister of Transportation?
Yeah, I think the Minister of Transportation, I know that David Urban, but just a question, maybe you can forward it to him, is who owns those and what's our capacity there in those accesses to the lake, and if there's any potential future possibility of park areas on those accesses.
Those would be public accesses every 400 meters at time of subdivision, historically that the province would undertake. So it would be part of Minister of Transportation road right of way. But yeah, we can definitely look into it further with Minister of Transportation when we do the referrals.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I would say, so now I'm all confused. So who is responsible for managing any parking issues at Lake Airrock? Because I've heard those several times they come up. Is it FBRD or is it MODI or someone else?
I would say as FBRD, we manage the park itself. So we don't manage the parking on Minister of Transportation roads. So it would be a collaboration that would be required between the Minister of Transportation and advocacy on our behalf, on our side, to look into the limiting some kind of visitor management strategy or parking on that road.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Further.
So the next two questions that have been submitted are from Mike Armstrong. Question number one, since the owner has checked that there are no archaeological resources, does this mean that they have supplied the required site alteration permit? And question two, how does the FBRD enforce or deal with items that may contradict information submitted with the FBRD applications?
Through the chair, the proponent for Harrison Rise have submitted an archaeological impact assessment, and a little bit of clarity. Site alteration permits only come when there is a protected archaeological site and the development is proposing to alter it. So under Section 12 of Heritage Conservation Act, the proponent would need to apply. In this case, the archaeological impact assessment done by David Sheppy from Stolo, who's an archaeologist, concluded that there are no during their test pits and investigations, there are no archaeological resources on this property. Now, having said that, there are archaeological resources and protected sites in the larger area, which near Lake Rock, and of course, there's the Scarlet's land. So, in this instance, we do have a report that says there are no archaeological sites or artifacts on the property. Having said that, there are culturally modified trees and such that they would need to protect, and those would be captured. They're already captured in the OCP policies that speaks to culture and heritage resources, and when at time of zoning, they would need to be protected through covenants and such. But there are no protected sites or artifacts they have uncovered. For the second question about the environmental area or the riparian area. It is true that in the application that the developer checked off on the box that within 30 meters, they're not gonna work within 30 meters of a water course. In this case, there is the knoll by Beaudry Road is a marshland and a riparian area. There's 3 unnamed water courses or tributaries of Hodgson and the Swackham Creek that go through that area. And should the developer propose anything that requires works within those 30 meters, they would need to work under the riparian area regulations. And we have environmental policies in our draft OCP that dictates to minimize crossings and no transportation crossings and such things. So and they have submitted an environmental assessment which marks out the streamside protection areas that they would need to avoid. And there are some erosion on some of those water courses that the developer thinks or is proposing to address. And should that happen, they would have to work with the province on the under the Water Sustainability Act and undertake further environmental investigations.
Okay, good. Thank you again, Mr. Nadby. Staff.
Okay, thank you, Chair Dickey. So now I will just turn the opportunity over to the members of the public joining us on Zoom. I see that we still have 3 on the call. If you would like to ask a question relevant to an item on today's agenda, I just ask that you hit the raise hand function. Just give them a minute. And we do have someone, Sarah.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm a resident at Lake Rock. And first off, I just want to thank everyone that's been involved in this meeting, as well as the staff and board's time in preparing for this conversation. As you can understand, as residents, this is a big topic for many of us, both those that have been in the area for many, many years, and also those that are just recently moving to the area. I do have a couple of questions, 3. The first being directed specifically to Mr. Nadby. It was asked earlier in this meeting if it was possible for the development to be reduced back to the original number of proposed units, especially given that the current number of proposed units far exceeds the housing needs in the area. I don't believe that you gave a direct answer, so I'm curious about that specific answer of flexibility and reducing the development to align more to the initial proposal.
For the chair to Sarah, the application in front of the board is for 485 units, and that's the proponent has a right to have their application considered in front of the board, and that's why we have brought this application in through the community public information meetings and the board. And the next steps, as we take more comments, more formal comments, not from the residents as well as the provincial agencies and the Indigenous communities, any option is possible and available in front of the board. And so between staff, board, and the developer, the developer would need to propose how they meet some of the resident concerns, and then at time of further subsequent considerations, the board would need to consider whether the developer has met all those requirements or all those comments from the public. Are there additional requirements that they need to work on? So it's an ongoing process, but reducing the number, if I know we have received 33 letters already, and about all of them have concerns about density. If this keeps coming, we will take these comments and future comments and bring it in front of the board, and we will ask the developer to address these comments, however should they choose to. And then at time of further meetings, then the board will have to decide whether we proceed with a 485 unit application, or it's a direction to staff that the developer look into alternatives for this proposal.
All right, thank you so much. So second question that I have is more so for the board and just understanding kind of the framework for consideration for this, just given the feedback that has been brought forward, the concerns of misalignment with the RGS, and as Director Davidson is saying, just the lack of community support and buy-in for it, for what it is, for kind of how do you balance the proposed benefits that the developer is putting forward versus where we're at with from many perspectives, far misalignment from the RGS.
That sounds almost like a political question. My answer would be with a lot of difficulty, but maybe I'll look to Mr. Nadby.
The regional growth strategy it's a document that has several factors. The density is, of course, one of them, and how growth is managed is one of them. In addition to that, connectivity like transportation and transit is another consideration. Indigenous engagement and the benefits that Indigenous communities are getting, that's another concern. The environmental policies is another concern. So it's a combination of policies that look towards sustainable growth management. Of course, density is one of the factors, but there's all the other factors and more that I mentioned. So what happens after first reading legislatively is that we'd have to consider the consistency with the regional growth strategy policies, and so there will be a report that speaks to those consistency statements in our subsequent meetings. But the board, what the RGS stands for is public interest, and public interest is all, of course, about the existing Lake Arc residents and their comments and concerns about density and other environmental matters, lake water quality, groundwater, and all that. It also considers the environmental policies that are in place to address some of those concerns. It also would need to look into the kind of benefits the Indigenous communities are getting out of this proposal. So it's a maybe it's a long-winded answer to say it's a balancing of interest that would need to happen through the RGS and, of course, the draft official community plan policies.
Okay, thank you. And the final question, it was brought up in this meeting too of the proposed for FERD to be purchasing more waterfront land to expand park space. This was the first that I had heard of this as being a consideration. So I'm just curious as to how these kind of evolutions of our proposed OCP are being put together and kind of the massive impacts that decisions like that would have on our community of how do we continue to be informed of proposals like this and have our continued feedback on it, because that obviously is very different than what anything we've seen so far to date has been.
Through the chair, this, of course, we are at the first reading consideration draft policy stage today. It was something that was presented in the open house on April 24th or 22nd in Lake Arc community. And this is really to address the long-term, the high number of visitors that the community is seeing at the Lake Arc Community Park. The way for residents to be engaged is we're going to have these, of course, we have the draft policies that are on this agenda, and also that will be on the Have Your Say webpage should this receive first reading in July. And we will be in front of the community doing public information meetings. So through those presentations, as well as before truly land is purchased, if it's for parkland purposes, there's public engagement provincially that we would need to undertake at that time. So there's a continuous engagement process that we would have to work on and work with the residents.
I think that my follow-up statement on that is that I understand that there's been a lot of community engagement and a lot of feedback already given about this that doesn't seem to be noted as strongly perhaps as some might like in the board's consideration here. And so the ongoing comments of having community feedback and opportunities for people and residents to give their feedback. I'm just curious as to how much more needs to be said of kind of the same concerns that have been echoed for, over a year plus now regarding this area.
Yeah, through the chair, when considering an application, of course, if there are some legislative steps and if this receives first reading, it has to go through Indigenous consultation and similar public engagement with the residents. And if it, then of course at every reading the board has the option to proceed with it or not. So that's definitely an option based on the comments we have received thus far. And then there's also the formal public hearing process that's legislated that we'd need to host. And based on those comments, the board will need to make a final decision whether to proceed with this application or not.
Good.
Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you all for the time that you spent on here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your submission and your attention. Staff.
Thank you. So for a final time, we'll just check in on Zoom. If you'd like to ask a question, please hit the raise hand function. It appears there are no more questions, Chair Dickey.
Good. Thank you. So we'll turn the agenda back to our CAO.
Thank you. So looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
Motion, moved Director Wardberg, seconded Director Johnson. All in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Okay, and if the committee could just give us 5 minutes to set up the room. Okay, Chair Dickey, we can reconvene the meeting.
CEO, I apologize.
Thank you. So item 17.1 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Water Conservation Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1754.
Okay. Move Director Dixon, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? So I remember when this first came to us maybe 8 years ago, and the concern was that all the evidence was that we have very strong aquifers, at least in my community. I'm not aware of other communities, and that if the residents are not dealing with a threatened aquifer, that we would be concerned that they would be denied water. Maybe could staff expand on that?
Yeah, through the chair to Director Dickey. Your recollection of the discussion from I think it was 2016 is correct. Yeah, we do have strong, robust water sources, in particularly our groundwater. So there is no concern to date. Surface water, on the other hand, we do have two surface water systems in Electoral Area A, where the water conservation bylaw, as it stands today, is not in effect. Those systems are surface water. We could potentially see impacts in the future with climate change and other drought conditions. The other consideration with this bylaw amendment is it may not necessarily be the aquifer itself that is driving it. This could be something that comes from the province as our regulator. We've seen that this past year where the province has made requests to water licensees to voluntarily reduce water consumption, and in some cases mandate it, not with any of our systems, but there is the possibility that a provincial regulator could require us to enact water restrictions, regardless of whether or not we actually had any concerns with our specific systems.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chan, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
17.2 is the 2024 UBCM Convention Ministry Staff Meeting Requests. There is a motion for your consideration.
Mover, Director Johnson, second Director Castle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
17.3 is the 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund Agreement.
Okay. So at the RACS meeting today, this was separated into two different motions. What would the committee like to see move forward? Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. I have the will to move both clauses of the motion and see if I get a seconder.
Davidson second.
Director Davidson seconds. Discussion. Seeing Director McElhaney.
I'm not sure of the order of this. It's the once a motion's called.
The motion has been called as the staff recommendation states, and so that would be what would be discussed and voted on at this time unless an amendment is made.
That's correct, Chair. So if this motion were to pass by this committee, that is the recommendation from the committee that would go forward to the board, and then the board will determine how to move forward. If the motion fails, the recommendation from the morning meeting will also go to the board, and the entire board will be looking at this item in 2 weeks' time.
So once this motion is called, I can put forward another motion until this one's dealt with. Okay.
Well, procedurally, it's difficult for me to comment not knowing the motion, but I would just look to our legislative services team because there are rules around motions that fail and motions that are contrary to something that's already failed.
Something that I'm not, this is just something a little different than I've done. So I'm just going to withdraw my remarks and okay.
Good. Thank you, Director McElhonick. Not seeing any further Yep, Director Dixon.
So I'm sorry, just for clarification. So if the motion is moved by Director Castle for both of these to go, either way, does this item not showing up on the board meeting and we'll be voting on it again after another long discussion, probably?
That is correct.
Director and Dixon. Will it be a weighted vote at the board meeting?
I can't imagine that this would be a weighted vote. No, this would be an all unweighted vote.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion fails.
Okay, so then we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Move Director Down, second Director McElhonick. All in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Thank you, staff, for a rather complicated meeting.